What is going on, internet? Today we're discussing the fall of Bombardier and the 4 main reasons I believe contributed to their decline. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank all of you out there watching and supporting the channel. I'm very grateful to have reached 30 subscribers already. With your support, I know we can get the 100 this month. And hey, if you want to check out last week's video about Dollarama, the link is up in the right corner or down below in the description. Alright, so first let's talk about Bombardier's story a bit, and understand their prolific years before we discuss their decline. They started off as a family company in rural Quebec and became one of the best jet makers in the world. From his early days, Joseph Armand Bombardier, let's call him Jab, wanted to help people travel across the snow-filled roads in rural Quebec. He would actually build his first snow vehicle when he was 15, and by 1937, Jab successfully launched a 7-passenger B7 snowmobile, and 5 years later, he would officially launch l'Auto-Neige Bombardier Limité to manufacture 12-passenger B12 snowmobiles. This was a company where success was measured by their ability to be inventive and disruptive. They would then release a number of snow-proficient vehicles for ambulances, freight transport, mail delivery, and school transportation services. They actually pioneered a brand new industry, commonly known as snowmobiling. Jab was set out to create the perfect personal snowmobile design. In 1959, he would launch the famous Ski-Doo line. In 1966, Jab's son-in-law Laurent Baudouin became president of the company. He proved he was a visionary and innovative mind just like his predecessor. Under Baudouin, the company saw organic growth and diversified through strategic acquisitions into different industries that we'll discuss a bit later. By 1969, the company would go public and start selling its shares to fuel growth and meet their goals. Bombardier diversified into the railway industry in 1970 when it acquired Lohner Werke in Vienna, Austria, and I do want to apologize if I mispronounced that in any way. Lohner Werke was a manufacturer that produced motor scooters and trams. Through that same transaction, Bombardier also acquired Rotax, a manufacturer of engines that was a subsidiary to Lohner Werke. During the oil crisis in 1973, Baudouin and his management team realigned the company and focused on the railway business. They would reduce their snowmobile production in half. They would then redeploy the company's excess manufacturing capacity, acquire a large amount of transit technologies, and apply their expertise to building railway vehicles. The following year, they would win their first major transit contract to manufacture 423 cars for Montreal's metro system. Then, in 1982, they would also win a $1 billion contract to build 825 subway cars for the New York City Transit Authority, and winning massive contracts like this were a big deal as they would lead to the company's success heights. This placed Bombardier as a North American leader in transit railway. In 1986, Bombardier would continue to diversify when it would enter the aerospace industry. They acquired the CL-215, an amphibious firefighting aircraft, and their manufacturer, Canadair. And Canadair was one of the most important acquisitions in Bombardier's history. They were a leading Canadian aircraft company who manufactured the iconic Challenger wide-body business jets. The Challenger would always impress and increase industry standards. This jet is still built today, and it is amongst the world's best business jet sellers in terms of top corporate flight departments and charter operators. By 1994, Bombardier would launch the Bombardier 415 aircraft as a successor to the CL-215. It remains the only aircraft precisely designed for fighting fire from the air. It can also be set up for other tasks like naval search and rescue, surveillance, and transporting staff. Again, these were strong years for Bombardier. Their revenues and net income were both steadily increasing, and they also demonstrated an increasing positive net equity. If we go back to 1989, Bombardier launched their 50-seat Canadair regional jet, known as the CRJ, and it was a game changer because it connected small cities to major hubs. This made flying accessible to most people. CRJ would then successfully launch a 70, 86, and 100-seat aircraft in 1997, 2000, and 2007, respectively. The CRJ series is renowned around the world as a regional aircraft program. In 1990, Bombardier would acquire the Learjet Corporation, which enabled them to launch the Learjet 60, which eventually became the best-selling aircraft in its class. This iconic line has continued to be refined by their engineers. Their most recent version, the Learjet 75 Liberty, features a state-of-the-art interior design, a modern cabin management system, world-class performance, and modest operating costs. In 1992, Bombardier would acquire Boeing's de Havilland division and their famous Dash 8. They would become a leader in the regional airliner market. They were also the only manufacturer that offered both jet and turboprop aircrafts in the 50-seat category. They would eventually even implement a noise suppressing system, making the aircraft as silent as a jet. In 1993, they would launch the Global Express business jet. This line would offer extraordinary comfort while flying non-stop between Montreal and Tokyo. It would make its first flights in '96 and would enter service in 1999. The Global Express XRS and 4 other models were then introduced to the line, known for its innovation. By 1995, their recreational product division would have significant growth, as they would gain half of the personal watercraft market with their Sea-Doo and Speedster boats. They also created an engine that offered a 50% reduction in hydrocarbon emissions and up to 25% better fuel economy for their snowmobiles. They would also enter the all-terrain market and would gain recognition when they won ATV Magazine's Best ATV Award in 1999. That being said, this brings us to the first reason for their fall, their inability to focus on their core business. In 2003, Bombardier would reorganize the company and sell off their recreational product business. This was a year where they would report a net loss of 650 million Canadian dollars. The company was also on rocky roads during this time. Their net worth was decreasing year over year, and their long-term debt was increasing each year. As a result, they would decide to focus on railway and aerospace instead. They would then introduce the C-Series program in 2008, and it would set flight for the first time in 2013. Lufthansa, a leading German carrier company, was the first to show interest in the C-Series. They would order up to 60 jets. Then in 2016, they would get their biggest order from Delta, who ordered 75 CS-100s with the option to purchase 50 more of them. In 2017, they would partner with Airbus on the C-Series line. This gave this program global reach and scale. But hold on, let's not sleep on their railway business. Bombardier Transportation became a worldwide leader in the rail equipment industry when they acquired Adtrans in 2001. The following year, they moved their transportation headquarters from Montreal to Berlin. This gave them more flexibility to operate in Europe, the world's largest railway market. They would continue to innovate over the next decade too. For example, in 2005, they introduced Zefiro, their first very high-speed train. In 2007, they introduced the very first hybrid train in the world called the Autorail Grande Capacité, and it was equipped with dual voltage technology. They would strengthen their leadership in the railway industry by obtaining major orders for light rail vehicles, commuter trains, and intercity trains from Germany, France, and South Africa, respectively. To secure their future, Bombardier would launch a 5-year restructuring plan in 2015 to deleverage and strengthen the company's balance sheet. They would solidify their partnership with the government of Quebec and Airbus, and then sell their interest in the C-Series A220 partnership. This terminated the commercial aerospace chapter from their history. Nonetheless, they will always be proud of their trailblazing impact on commercial aviation. In early 2020, Bombardier would announce the sale of Bombardier Transportation to Alstom. This closed another important saga in their history, but these changes were necessary as they would allow Bombardier to refocus on their core business, selling jets. They create innovative and disruptive jets and remain world leaders. These aircrafts set new standards in passenger comfort, energy efficiency, reliability, and safety. That being said, the Quebec-born business has a long way to show doubters that they are still competitive and here to stay. The second reason for their fall was touched upon briefly earlier. They are over-reliant on government subsidies and bailouts to support their expansion. Since their inception, they've taken over $4 billion in public funds. For instance, they received financial aid from Quebec in 1975 when they acquired Montreal Locomotive Works from Studebaker Worthington. Most recently, Quebec gave Bombardier $1 billion to help them roll out and market the C-Series. And in 2017, the federal government would give them an additional $372.5 million as an interest-free loan to support their C-Series and the development of their Global 7000 business jet. And we already discussed they would eventually sell out of the C-Series. If you like content like this and want to have an impact on this channel, the best way to show your support is to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. With that last one, you'll be notified when the newest videos that discuss the successes and failures of Canadian companies are released. Alright, so the next reason for Bombardier's fall is their financial performances. Unfortunately, for this manufacturing giant, they were not able to sustain their strong performances from the 80s and 90s. Just looking at the past 10 years, they are down 126% on net income and have reported losses 7 times during that period. This is much different than when the company was seeing large growth between 1989 and 1998, where they saw their net earnings increase 515% in that 10-year period. After their highs in 2001, the company would struggle to earn close to or over $1 billion, and since then, their bottom line has looked more like a roller coaster track than anything else. The fourth and final reason for their decline is their high debt levels over the past few decades. In industries that require a lot of innovation to compete, research and development, acquisitions, and other ways that companies explore to stay relevant and ahead of the curve can cost a pretty penny, even for a large corporation. To fuel growth, some companies will reinvest earnings, others will finance themselves by raising capital and diluting shares, and others will borrow money. This is the case for Bombardier, and they've been stuck managing high debt levels since the 90s. Their long-term debt almost increased 700% between 1994 and 2003. During that same period, their total assets only grew 550%. Their situation is still dire. They've had negative net worth over the past 8 years, a huge red flag. This demonstrates financial concerns that are clearly visible on their balance sheet. It's true that their total liabilities and long-term debt decreased 44% and 14%, respectively, over the past 10 years, but during that same period, their total assets decreased even more. It saw a fall of 58% during that time. The road ahead is still very rocky for this once great Canadian company. It's not all bad for the aircraft manufacturer though. In 2022, they started Bombardier Defense, which offered unique aircraft solutions to meet the needs of special mission operators. Their aircrafts take a variety of demanding missions ranging from humanitarian support to battlefield and border surveillance. Bombardier continues to look ahead with ambitious eyes to innovate. In 2022, they also introduced their EcoJet research project. It's a program aimed to make aviation sustainable through innovative design and cutting-edge technologies. As we just saw, Bombardier started off as a small local company with a noble mission to help Canadians get by during harsh winter conditions we face up here in the north. They would pioneer the snowmobile industry and showcase visionary ideas. They would even branch into other recreational vehicles like Sea-Doos and ATVs. Not to mention, expand into other industries altogether, like aerospace and transportation. However, after reaching great heights, they would plateau and start to decline. Their inability to focus on their core business is a large contributor to their fall. Their lack of focus and their ambitions to explore opportunities in industries foreign to them proved costly, and they would require financial support from the public. Add in poor financial performances and high debt, and you really have a great recipe for failure. Despite this, I would love to see Bombardier turn things around and rise up from these trying times. After all, innovation is in their DNA. These are the 4 main reasons I believe contributed to Bombardier's fall. I realize there may be more than just these reasons, like their struggles to compete with rivals, the decline in demand for jets, supply chain hurdles, and many more. I'm interested in hearing your comments. What do you think about them? Do you have any other reasons that explain their decline? I would love to hear different thoughts on the topic. And hey, let me know which company you'd like me to report on next. I'm all ears and eager to hear all about them in the comment section. Thank you for watching.